1. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, for a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. I'm Fred Lambert, your host. And as usual, I'm joined by Sept Wintraub. How are you doing today, Sept?
Good.
All right, I hope you're ready because we have quite a few news items to discuss today. About half of them are Tesla stuff. Was a bunch of Tesla news this week, and then half of it is actually not Tesla stuff, which is quite rare for us. But some fun news to discuss this week and some less fun news to discuss too. So let's jump right in, starting with something that came out this morning, and it's the Model Y finally launching in Europe. You can now place an actual order instead of a pre-order in most, not all, but most European markets, starting with the long range and the performance version. And Tesla is listing a September delivery. So fairly quick.
That means they're not being built in Berlin.
Yes. So that was the more confusing part of the news. Nowhere it's written on Tesla's website that they are made in China. Unlike the Model 3 one, because Tesla did start for the standard range version of Model 3, ship them from Shanghai to some European market and some other APAC market. But they would specify that you're getting it made in China. Not that it's that big of a deal, of course, in terms of like quality and everything. Like Tesla has been doing great in Shanghai. However, there are differences, especially with the shorter range version. We're talking about the Model 3 here, being using LFP battery cells instead of the natural, the usual. I keep confusing NMC and NCA. With I think it's NCA that they're using in the cars. But anyway, it's a version and version of that anyway. But in this case, they don't say anything for the Model Y. Though, to be fair, it's just the long range and the performance version being sold, not the standard range. And in Norway, there was a publication that first reported that Tesla started taking pre-orders early in the morning, for them at least. And they did report that those vehicles would be coming out of Shanghai. Which again would make sense, like you mentioned, said just from the timing alone. But also, I think even though they didn't really specify the source of that information, Norway Tesla does have a PR department in Norway, so I would assume that they got the information from Tesla directly on that front, or at least on background that might explain why they didn't specify the source of the information. Mm-hmm. But at this point, it looks extremely likely that those cars would be coming out of Shanghai, as Tesla is having some issues with Berlin, of course, with the approval process to start production, which is required. It's not just about the supply chain and building. They actually need approval, and they're having some issues with that process. They are battling with the German bureaucracy at this point. And it's the pricing is, of course, varies per market and everything, because they have different taxes. In Europe, you have to apply the taxes, but it's basically where we expected it. And again, just for the dual motor and for the long range, because the standard range Model Y also launched in, we talked about Hong Kong last week, but this time it's in on the Model Y article. I don't know why I did that, but that's all right. So Tesla did bring back the Model Y standard range for the Chinese market after launching in Hong Kong, and it appears to be a kind of a move to address that, to be eligible for some incentive in the Chinese market, because they have a price limit on those incentives, which they get for the Model 3. They weren't getting it for the Model Y, but now with the standard range version, they do. And it basically starts at the equivalent of $42,500, which was the price Tesla was selling the standard range Model Y when it was briefly available in the US, though I guess it was supposedly still available, but as a off-the-menu item. But they managed to keep a similar price, but that price is due to a 15,000 yen EV incentive that they can apply on the vehicle, because it starts under 300,000 yen. It is listed as having a 525 kilometer range, which is the equivalent 326 miles, which of course that's based on the WLTP standard, not as effective or as representative as real world range as the EPA. So, I think 326. What does the long range version the US gets? It's pretty much that, right? Your
same.
car, yeah, your car is listed at that. I think 325.
It's listed at that, but it hits about 310 right now.
All right. Am I still on? It looks like I'm having some issue with my internet right now.
Yeah, you're on.
Okay.
There are some blips though.
Yeah, so it's being weirdness for some reason. Apologize for the technical issue. All right, Model S and X saw a $5,000 price increase. That was last night. Tesla updated the configurator for both vehicles, and it applies to the long range version of both Model S and X. So for the Model S, it's went from 80,000 to 85,000. For the Model X, it went from 90 to 95. And in this case, I mean, we reported for the last few months on the Model 3 and Model Y price increases that have been extremely frequent, to say the least. But those were incremental, like $500 at a time price increases. This is a much bigger price increase, 5,000, and it comes really just as Tesla started delivering the Model S long range, because of course last month they started the Plaid delivery, but and some long range, but the long range is ramping up now, really. And Model X, they haven't really started deliveries yet, so it's already getting a $5,000 price increase. And as I was writing this article, I realized also something makes no sense, because the Plaid Model X is listed at $120,000, while the Model S Plaid is listed at $130,000. Of course, it got a $10,000 price increase just a few weeks ago, but not for the Model X. More expensive than the Model S long range. So that makes no sense.
Right.
And of course, when it comes to the Model 3, Model Y price increases, Tesla has been linking those to supply chain constraint and a lot of pressure on that front in terms of cost, pushing the price higher. In this case, I don't know if we can say that that's the cause again, because again, the price differences, the price increases are quite different. $500 increments to a 5,000 here, it's a much bigger deal. But so we could assume maybe it's demand, but that would be speculation at this point. I was looking at the delivery timelines, which normally can give us an idea for new orders. I mean, new orders delivery timelines can give us an idea of how many cars are available. In this case here, Tesla is listing a September-October delivery for the long range, which just saw the price increase. For the Model X, it's January to February. So it's
next year.
Yeah, it's kind of long lead time, but I would assume that Tesla is going to be updating those, because for the Model S, it made no sense. The Plaid delivery timeline for new orders was listed as June. We're of course in July right now, so I assume that Tesla is going to change that. I'm going to check real quick, because maybe that Tesla already did change those.
So I have a theory on the pricing AI here. So Model X and Model S go up $5,000 every time the delivery times go out beyond a certain point, like 6 months or something. So every 2 weeks, this pricing AI goes and says, all right, when is the next when is a new car going to be delivered? If it's more than a certain amount, they raise the price. So for Model S and X, they raise the price $5,000. For Model 3 and Model Y, they raise the price $500. And then they run this like every week or every 2 weeks. Seems like I think that might be it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's the truth. I'm on it right now, and no, it's still the same as it was yesterday when I wrote that article. They haven't updated it, which obviously they're gonna have to, because it makes no sense. All right. As we've been discussing over the past few weeks, when Elon's timeline starts getting into week, 2 weeks period, it's more likely that it's getting close. And now we went from a 1-2 week period to an actual date on Saturday, which is tomorrow. So tomorrow, FSD Beta should launch V9. I mean, but so in the last few weeks, I mean, it should come as a surprise and not as a surprise at the same time. In the last few weeks or months, really, that since you've been talking about it, it kind of linked the launch of the V9 to the wider release
Yes.
of the FSD Beta without really talking about the early access program anymore. It does make sense to send it to the early access program again and test it for a while, but he made it sound like like when we get V9, we also get the wider release. But now he did discuss that the wider release is going to be about a month, depending on how the early access program goes with the beta of A9. So that just changed the timeline a lot for a lot of people here. So let's say that Tesla does stick to the Saturday timeline for the release. That's just going to be about 2,000 cars that's going to get it. Most of them Tesla employees, and the rest it's going to be owners that Tesla likes and know that they're going to be positive about the experience and everything in terms of what they share on social media and whatnot. And then Tesla's going to use the feedback of that, and then a month or so later, which based on the current experience with FSD Beta can turn into a lot more than a month, that's when Tesla would release the download button, and I assume the subscription model too. And that's where things get confusing, because he's been talking about the subscription model launching like now, basically.
Right.
But I assume it won't come until the download button is there, because that's where the value is. It's the self-driving, the FSD Beta. That's the value. Unless you're just talking about the other feature in FSD, maybe Tesla wants to launch a subscription model for people to get access to that. But I feel like the real value is in the FSD Beta. So it would be weird for them to launch that subscription model and then but maybe it would be good as a soft launch. Like some people will get it just for the current features, but the take rate is probably going to be quite low. So I really don't know. I really don't know what's the what.
Yeah, I mean it's free money for Tesla. Like once they do the subscription model, they just flip a switch and people are sending them money. But I agree with you. I thought, and this might have been from a Elon tweet, I thought that the button was coming at the same time as the V9. So this is kind of weird that he's separating the two now, and he's saying a month out. So everybody's kind of waiting for the button. Nobody really cares about like these.
Well, 2,000 people care.
2,000 people care, and those are mostly like the Twitter folks.
Tesla. Yeah, so, I mean, to be fair, like this is how Tesla has been operating for a while now, so it would have been actually a divergence for the strategy to just go to the wider release.
Right.
But they've been testing that FSD Beta for a while now, so this is just like it should be a safer iteration of it by this point. And they did launch the Tesla Vision thing to the wider fleet, at least the new cars in the wider fleet last month. So I don't know, we'll see. He did release we kind of already knew that it was coming, but he confirmed that a new user interface will come with the FSD V9, and he referenced it as a mind of car view. We assume that he's talking about the driving realization here. That for the beta version, well, I said for the beta version, but the wider release is still going to be a beta version, so it's not gonna like they're going to remove the beta. They want that qualification for just for safety, basically. But the one that it's in car right now in the FSD in the early access program, it's more like a debugging view than anything else. It doesn't look like a finished product. But so we've been expecting an updated driver realization with the wider release, and Elon confirmed it. Yes, updated UI coming with FSD wide release. All cars with FSD computer will have new mind of car view. All 3 and Y can be upgraded to have FSD computer. So he didn't elaborate on the mind of car view, but we assume it like mean, the driving visualization has always been a way to see what autopilot can see, and it hacks some kind of a confidence builder in the system. If it looks like the driving visualization are accurate to what is going around the car, then you can at least know that the computer sees correctly. Now it only needs to act correctly based on what it can see, which is another task on itself, another complicated task. But the fact that it can recognize its environment correctly is already a big deal. Now, Elon said that he didn't link it to it coming to FSD car that have the FSD package. He linked it to the FSD computer. So it sounds like all cars that have the FSD computer should get it, even if you didn't buy the FSD package. So that's an interesting development too. Not a big deal, but still fun to get. All right, so that's something that came out last weekend, actually. Elon confirmed that there's going to be independent steering for the rear wheels of the Tesla Cybertruck. So there's been some speculation on what that could mean. It sounds a lot like the crab mode that GM announced on the GMC Hummer EV. But it could also be something closer to the tank turn of Rivian. It really depends on how you interpret the comment here of rear wheel steering. To me, steering means like to manically steer the wheels, which in vehicles that's the front wheel that steers and that propels you to the right direction. So when you say rear wheel steering, is that the wheel will move too, just like GM has an independent rear wheel steering. And with that, you can achieve crab mode. You can achieve other things too. And what Elon says here is to do tight turns and maneuvers with high agility. So, of course, you can do that too. But some people assume that and again, I don't understand that. A lot of people assume that, but with rear wheel steering, for me, it really means more like to actually steer the rear wheels. They thought it might mean opposite. Backwards, which is more what Rivian does with the tank turn. So maybe it's that, but for me, it's, you wouldn't have called that rear wheel steering, in my opinion.
I don't think you can do a tank turn unless you have 4 separate motors, though. Can you?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, a full tank turn. Yeah, you're right.
Or what do they call it? Perfect donut. The other thing where you just spin around but you need like all 4 wheels to be going in like
all 4 wheels here.
But yeah, I think it's probably going to be. I don't know if you remember, but like back in the day, the Honda Prelude came out and it had rear wheel steering. I think just it makes the turning radius a lot smaller on big vehicles. Yeah. And I mean, I think the crab walk thing that the Hummer does is kind of a little bit of a gimmick. It's a cool gimmick. I'm all for gimmicks like that.
It's a gimmick that features the capacity to do other things too,
right?
With the rear wheel steering. Yeah.
So I think it's cool, but I think the better thing is that you can make way smaller radius turns with big hulking vehicles, and that's probably what Tesla's going to do here.
Yeah.
It would be cool if we could go like put perfectly perpendicular and you could just park sideways. Be nice.
Yeah. The Chevy Bolt EV, another Chevy Bolt EV caught on fire, and this one is a little bit more important because it's actually a car that got the final software fix that is supposed to help prevent the fire issues that have been known to happen now with some Chevy Bolt EVs that have LG Chem battery cells in them that have been found to be defective. And so we've been covering this story for a while. There's been a bunch of Chevy Bolt EV fires, and then GM linked them to cell supplier. And there was similar issues, though they claim not to be the exact same issues with Hyundai Kona EV cells. And Hyundai decided to just recall all their cars and replace the battery pack, which is still ongoing, of course. And GM took a different approach and instead decided to first limit the full charging capacity of the car to a 90 or 95%, if I remember correctly.
They said 90, but it was really, in actuality, only reduced to 95%, which probably most people didn't even notice.
Okay, and then there was after that there was another software fix. That was a final software fix that the new software monitors also the battery after a charge is completed to look for abnormalities, and it's basically an alert system that if there's abnormalities, you can address it before there's a thermal runaway event happening, which is basically your car catching on fire, of course.
Yeah.
So in this case, this fire happened last week, and it was in Vermont. And we've been trying to track exactly if there's some factors in terms of the charging habits that can result in not necessarily result, but aggravate circumstances that can lead to that thermal runaway event. And there seems to be some similarities in terms of all the cases that happen of the Chevy Bolt EV fires with the frequency of charging and the level of discharge. And
yeah, so what basically happens is the almost all the cars that we know about have gone down. They get discharged to almost zero before being charged back up. So when like this particular guy, he would run his car until it was very low, and then he would charge it from like 10% or less. And that kind of fits the profile of all the other fires.
Yeah, that's correct. And then in this case, also the car was plugged in when it started. He started seeing some smoke coming out, and then he unplugged the car and called the fire department. And by the time the fire department arrived, that's when the car really caught on fire. And that's why it doesn't look too bad too in terms of a car that, with a battery fire.
Yeah,
it's they caught it pretty quick and started just putting a ton of water on the back seat, which is where normally the fire looks to be starting.
Yeah, shout out to the Vermont Fire Department there that did that. That sounded like they were really on the ball, not just about getting there on time, but like knowing what to do.
Yeah. So we contacted GM about this incident here because on top of like now it's up to 10 fires, and of course we when we discuss battery fires related to electric vehicles, we always like to point out that statistically speaking, there's no evidence that electric vehicles catch on fire at a higher rate than gasoline power vehicles. But in this case, with the number of Bolt EVs out there, which is not that huge really, having already 10 fires is starting to be significant. And on top of it, this fire comes in after they pushed this supposedly fix. I mean, the fix doesn't necessarily prevent. Well, it should at least help you detect the fire before that it can happen.
Right.
It didn't really do that. The alarm did start at some point, but the thermal runaway events was already started. So not a great look. We contacted GM about it. They said they are aware of the incident. They are investigating it, but they're not commenting anything more on it. This is a situation where we need to start asking, should GM do more than these software fixes and go the route of Hyundai and replace those battery pack? I think this is starting to be quite a fair question to ask by now. And GM doesn't seem to be on board with this idea, surprisingly.
Yeah, their comms is kind of disappointing, to say the least. I'm sure Chevy Bolt owners are not feeling great about putting their cars in their garage at the moment. I used to be a Bolt owner, and I would park my car in the garage every evening. So like thank God there wasn't and my bedroom is like right above our garage, so it would have been scorching if I had an incident. Yeah, I don't know. They really got to work on their communications, because right now it's basically it's us like going out and doing all this sleuthing and big shout out to Sean Graham for all the work he's done there.
Yeah, Sean's talked to a few of the owners that have been affected by that, and the most of them complain about the communication with GM is just nothing happening. It's like their insurance and that's it. Like the GM has barely any communication with them. In this case, the owner affected, Tim Bringlin, if I pronounce his last name correctly, is a state representative in Vermont. So he has some notoriety at least. Maybe that would make GM move a little bit more. I don't know if they care at this point.
I think they care. My thing is, I think the lawyers are telling them not to say anything because, this is all going to come back in a lawsuit or class action. Sure. So the lawyers are saying, don't say anything that at all, and that's making things a lot worse. So what needs to happen is like somebody like Mari Barra or whatever needs to come in and say, look, we have to communicate this to our users because, we're trying to go all electric here. And if our first effort at that causes 10 house fires, that's not going to be a good look for us.
Yeah, and I'm sure the situation is also like Hyundai, for example, like they blame LG.
Yep.
And then they switched battery supplier from LG to SK Innovation. Okay, GM is not in the same situation where like they can blame LG all they want, but and yes, they are switching battery technology for the new Ultium powered vehicles that are coming out. But Ultium is a venture in partnership with LG, so they are in a much different situation there. They don't have the luxury to switch battery suppliers at all right now, even though the Ultium battery won't be the same as the Chevy Bolt EV batteries, with which they claim that the Chevy Bolt EV batteries are not the same cell that you find in the Hyundai vehicles that are being recalled. Even though they're both from LG, they claim that they are from different factories. They have different chemistries. Hyundai apparently is a separator issue in the cell. GM has been kind of all over the place with that. Like more recently, some people are claiming that it's actually also a separator issue. But GM is saying now it's another thing. So it's a very messy situation. All right, we have a few more news items. So if you guys have any comments, any questions to ask us, any subject you want us to discuss about EVs this week, let us know in the comment section below, or wherever you are right now on YouTube, Facebook, whatever, and we're gonna get to it in a few minutes. So this was an interesting piece of news this week that came out of Reuters. The Electrify America is currently rumored to, actually Volkswagen is rumored to be looking for someone to invest, to buy a stake into Electrify America for $1 billion funding injection into the company. So that's a very interesting development here that could have major impact on EV charging infrastructure in the US, because if you guys don't remember, Electrify America started out of a deal between the EPA, CARB, and Volkswagen over the Dieselgate scandals, I should say. So the issue, I mean, Volkswagen had to pay a ton of different fines over the Dieselgate scandal, but as part of the deal, the EPA and CARB also forced the German automaker to invest $2 billion in, I think the exact language here was invest $2 billion in zero emission vehicle charging infrastructure and the promotion of zero emission vehicles in the US. So they decided to spend that $2 billion quite wisely by creating a new company called Electrify America and deployed a nationwide electric vehicle charging network, which result in them having a brand new, extremely valuable business of charging electric vehicle through that venture, which at the same time is extremely valuable for their own rollout of electric vehicles in the US, since they can use that charging infrastructure. But it's open to other automakers. Of course, the EPA wouldn't have been okay with forcing them to spend $2 billion on their own business. It has to be open to other automakers. But so far, other automakers have only used it through, well, they are open stations, so any EV owners can go and use them. But they also made direct deals with Electrify America to have like preferential pricing models, and integration of the charge points into the navigation system inside the vehicles and things like that. But that's been the extension of it so far. Now we're talking about something different. We're talking about Volkswagen allowing someone else to invest into the network with $1 billion that Electrify America would use to expand their network, and then they would own part of it, so they would have some control over it. It would be like agreeably easier for them to then do some of those deals that I just discussed in terms of the pricing model and access to the network and whatnot. So the Electrify America didn't deny the report or confirmed it. But the report didn't include which company they are discussing with right now for that deal, because we're talking about a big deal, of course. Here, $1 billion. It's gonna have to be an automaker, I would assume. And so now the speculation is ongoing. Like, who could it be? Who could spend $1 billion into that? Do you have your own speculation set?
Obviously, Ford's kind of high on my list, because they're already Electrify America partners. GM is kind of going with EVgo, so it would be weird for them to group up there. I mean, who are the other ones? Toyota is a big company, but they're not doing anything EV.
For them to spend $1 billion on the U.S. market for
right
EV
now,
infrastructure would be a surprising move. Yeah. In Europe, I would say maybe, but in the U.S., that would be surprising.
Yeah, and so like Ionity in Europe, which is kind of the same kind of idea.
It would become closer model to Ionity than what it is now. Yeah.
So, but who's in Ionity? I think BMW's in there, and Ford.
I put them in the article here. Okay. Let me find it real quick. It's BMW, Ford, Hyundai, and Volkswagen. Hyundai was added later on, though, kind of like what's happening right now with Electrify America.
Oh yeah, Hyundai could be a Kia could be a big. They would spend $1 billion.
Yeah, and they did it with Ionity. They weren't part of it earlier on, and then they were like, "Hey, you guys, if we can get in on that deal, we would." So they let them in, and they invested some money. So something similar could definitely happen. I see someone in the comment, Shane O'Sullivan, just said maybe Apple. That could be a curveball there. It could be not an automaker, but someone that's getting into the business, like an Apple that has been rumored for a while now to be building its own electric vehicles.
That would be bombshell news.
Yeah, that definitely would be. Maybe like someone like a Lucid Motors also, like they don't have their own charging network or something, like that could be useful. But for them to shell out $1 billion, it would be kind of unrealistic at this point. So yes, it's a bigger company would make more sense.
Yeah. I guess it could also be a group. Like they could say, here's $1 billion.
Oh BMW, they split it up. Yeah.
BMW take a third, Hyundai take a third, whatever.
Yeah. All right. That was a rumor that we've been hearing for a while now, but it became official this week. Rimac has officially taken over Bugatti in a quite of a wide-ranging deal that restructured the whole electric hypercar company and put Bugatti under it. Actually, they did release a very helpful kind of chart here that I was like good on Rimac for doing that, because like a lot of the times companies announce like very complicated restructuring and like they put out a press release about it, and you just trying to understand it through it. Like when a chart like that makes perfect sense. So basically, what they did, I mean, we've been reporting for a while now that Porsche has been investing into Rimac, which is a Croatian company that is better known for making electric hypercars, starting with the Concept 1, now the Concept 2 that became last month in Nevera. And now what they did is they breaking off the so I should say Rimac has also been getting into the OEM business, supplying other OEMs with electric vehicle technology. So it's been like two parts of the business. They are doing the hypercars, super expensive, limited production cars, and they are using the technology that they developed for those cars to make lower price electric vehicle technology, inverters, powertrain stuff, and sell that to other automakers like Koenigsegg has been one, and who else has been? Aston Martin has been buying electric vehicle stuff for them, and that's a growing business for them. So right now, what they're doing, they are creating instead the Rimac Group, and breaking it off into the Rimac hypercars and the Rimac technology to supply other OEMs. And Bugatti is going to merge with Rimac cars, Rimac Automobili, and under that they're going to operate a separate brand, Bugatti and Rimac. The ownership structure, as you can see here, so Porsche now owns 24% of the Rimac group. Matt, is it Mate or Matt? I don't know how you pronounce his name.
I think it's Mate.
Mate, the young engineer behind Rimac, he still owns 37% of the whole group, which is kind of impressive at this point, because I would assume that they are getting into the $1 billion valuation, so that the fact that you can grow that big and still remain the biggest shareholder is important. Then the Hyundai still has 12% of that too, and there's a bunch of other investors that take up the rest. So that's the ownership of the Rimac group, and the Rimac group owns 55% of the new Bugatti Rimac automaker group that now has two brands underneath them separately, and they own 100% of the Rimac technology group. Porsche still owns 45% of the Bugatti Rimac company, which they sold the Bugatti to the Rimac group to be part of that business. So they're still technically in control of the Rimac Bugatti automaker, since they own both 45% of it directly, and they own like 24% of the Rimac group, which owned 55%.
Yeah, so like 24% times 55% is like 13.2% plus 45, so that's 58.2% of. They own 52.8% of Bugatti Rimac.
Yeah, so they're still in control of Bugatti, and also they gain control of Rimac automaker, but not of Rimac technology, which they separated. So it's a very complex deal here going on. It is, but it does make sense. It does make a ton of sense, really, for Rimac as they evolve, and that is known for the Chevron, for extremely powerful vehicles. But there hasn't been any kind of indication that they would be going electric for a long time. So now that they are under Rimac, I would assume that they will be going electric. And personally, I can't wait to see a Bugatti electric. That will be quite something. But there's no official news on that front. It's just kind of obvious that they're going into that direction.
Do you think we'll see a hybrid before we see a Bugatti with a like an electric assist or whatever?
Like I would have said no, but they are both still operate as separate brands. So maybe they were like, I don't see Rimac working on a vehicle that's not all electric, really. Just knowing how Matt operates, but I don't know. I assume there's going to be a big restructuring of Bugatti as part of it. So maybe the people that weren't really willing to go all electric are gonna go away. I don't know. That's going to be something to keep a track of in the coming weeks. All right. Stellantis held what they call the EV 2021 day, and they announced a whole new electrification plan across all their brands, which if you start counting them now, it's actually 14 brands under the Stellantis group that's made up of the Fiat Chrysler group and PSA group merger. And yeah, it's the big headlines here. It's a 30 billion euros investment through 2025 into electrification. And in terms of what they plan on actually selling, it's not too exciting of a news here. 70% of cells to be all electric by oh, whoa, I didn't even catch that. They're not saying all electric, they're saying low emission vehicles. Whoa. I don't like that language at all.
No. Basically they can sell
then it means nothing then to me. Like Because in my head, I thought it was 70% of sales in Europe to be all electric and over 40% in the United States by 2030, which is already not, even if you're talking about all electric vehicle, it's not a very ambitious plan in my opinion. Now they're talking about low emission vehicle. It doesn't mean anything then. It's a completely useless announcement. But there are other things that are a little bit more exciting. They talk about securing battery resources, 260 gigawatt hour by 2030, which is also not giant, not bad either. But they are talking about BEV platforms. So 4 new BEV platform for small, medium, large vehicle and a frame, which I'll assume is going to be for commercial vehicles, that enables a range of up to 500 kilometers of range, 200 miles, to 800 kilometers, 500 miles of range. And those new platforms are coming mid-decade. They announced a bunch of new slogans for all the different brands that represent their electrification effort. A little marketing stuff, nothing too exciting. But then there were more announcements for the specific brands that we can get a little bit more excited about. Jeep, that's the one I did. I got stuck with the less exciting one because it's not that big of an announcement for Jeep here. They unveiled the Cherokee 4xe, which is a plug-in hybrid. Didn't release the specs here, but Jeep's plug-in hybrids haven't had very significant all-electric range, so I'm not getting my hopes up for that. But they did tease the all-electric Jeep Wrangler with a concept earlier this year. We expect unveiling of a production version relatively soon, but it sounds like 2024 is more when we're going to see the first all-electric Jeep. They did unveil a prototype of a concept that they already unveiled for a solar charger that you can deploy in places off-grid, because, of course, a lot of looking at the little solar charger there, but they already announced that. So a lot of the stuff from the announcement, they weren't that exciting to me from Jeep, but other stuff from Dodge and from we don't see it for some reason. I'm having issues with my internet for some reason. Like it's loading, but it's like not loading properly.
Yeah, your sound's going in and out as well. But
Oh, yeah?
so the RAM thing, not as exciting as you would initially hope. And frankly, it's kind of disappointing.
Oh, here it is.
Both of the renders. I mean, they even had to do a render of a battery, which means that they're not very far along in their path. The render they show for the battery and the render they show for the actual vehicle look like somebody was told like a couple days ago to make something up really quick. So if that's the case, then they basically just decided very recently, that they're going to start making electric vehicles. And luckily, 4 years from now or 3 years from now is quite a long time to like start, building these actual vehicles. So they do have some time to get there, but it really feels like this decision was like made in some boardroom like this month or last month or something crazy, because these things are very rudimentary, like these videos.
Yeah, and this image actually, because it's darkened, it looks like it's something that it's going to be unveiled. Like this is more like of a silhouette, and then we're gonna unveil the full thing. But then, if you actually look at the details of it, it looks extremely concepty, like the classic, like extremely small windows in terms of height here. That's not something that goes to production. So
Never.
They are teasing something that never is gonna go to production. It's just extremely concept-like. And like you said, also 2024, it's a bit late for an all-electric pickup truck at this point. There's going to be several all-electric vehicle program that are all-electric pickup truck program that's been ramped up, and the first vehicle, which of course the Rivian, should start deliveries in the next few weeks. Really, of course it's going to be low production, but next year you should start to have a few programs that at least delivers in the thousands of units. In 2023, there's going to be tens of thousands of electric pickup truck in the U.S. most likely. And 2024, I would assume that Tesla has ramped up the Cybertruck program already in the hundreds of thousands of units. And you have the F-150 that we don't know really the volume they're planning, but it's going to be fully ramped up by then, I assume. And Silverado Electric, it's going to be hard to compete for I keep saying Dodge Ram, but it's just Ram, right?
Yeah, they split up about a decade ago. I didn't remember that either, but something they did. Speaking of Dodge,
an electric muscle car, all-wheel drive muscle car. The video is not working.
Wow, they already pulled it. Crazy.
We don't have an image for that one. Again, I apologize.
If you scroll down, there should be some at the bottom.
Well, that's the whole one that you talked about this morning. That
I'd love to talk about that. I went down a rabbit hole. I actually found the guy. His name is Lou Rhodes, who ran that department. Found him on LinkedIn. Maybe we'll get him on the show or something. But it turns out Dodge had basically Chrysler at the time had a honest to goodness real EV thing going. Like they were going to build lots of EVs. They even had a press release saying they expected 100,000 EVs a year by 2012 or 2013. And, obviously went to zero, which is, super disappointing. But they were gung-ho on EVs for in 2008, 2009, right when the big recession hit, and gas prices were pretty high a little bit before that. But if you scroll down even further, there's some pictures of the Dodge idea.
Okay, what am I looking at? The first one here.
That's the front. And so there's that new logo, but it's actually not a new logo. It's their old, what's it called? Frog pans, something weird, some weird name. Yeah. So there's a name for that logo. It's up near the YouTube video. I wrote it. Let's see here. Oh yeah, frat Zog. Huh. It looks like a flux capacitor, and it's called a frat Zog. So Dodge used that logo in the 60s, 70s, and 80s for their muscle cars. So I guess they're gonna bring that back. That was exciting for old Dodge fans, I guess. Mm-hmm. They didn't show a lot of the car, and frankly, the message that Dodge brand CEO Tim Kuniskis was very, they were like, we're not electric, but we're going electric. We're not trying to save the environment, but this is good,
That's something you want to hear from someone. We're not trying to save the environment.
No, it was very he was like, we're not doing electric because we have a conscience. We're doing it because it's it's better, it's faster. So it was a fair, but maybe that's why they pulled the YouTube video. They were just like, this isn't great.
All right. What I don't understand here is what are we talking about? You're talking about a concept now for a vehicle that's going to come out in 2024. Yep. We don't see that a lot. We see that from startups and things like that. They want to create some buzz early. They want to try to show demand for a vehicle and show that to investors and everything. But we're talking about Dodge here. It's not your mom and pop's company.
No. And
they are teasing, not even unveiling, teasing a concept for a vehicle that's not going to be on the market for another 3 years. And 2024, we also need to keep in mind that can mean actually being released in 2024, or it can be a model year 2024, which means closer to the end of 2024 to 2023. So we don't know that exactly, but still, it's hard to get excited about. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of, and the rhetoric in there was it's the first American muscle car that's going to go electric. Well, you're going to have to really kind of narrow down electric because, basically a Tesla Model S in 2012 was kind of an American muscle car that. Mm-hmm. It had plenty of power and it was from America. But even if you're like, well, that's a sedan or whatever, the Mustang Mach-E, that kind of feels like Mustang's never has always been considered a muscle car. It's kind of an SUV, but it's still kind of a muscle car. So they're really trying to dial in the whatever.
Yeah, but I think they can still be right if no one else comes to market. They're gonna be the first EV muscle car. I mean, there's the you
Camaro.
Yeah, there's the Charge. You know the Charge. They're using old Mustang chassis to make this super electric car, and they actually making it in England. That's coming to market soon, but it's going to be more expensive. It's more like a limited production stuff. But there's a market for that. It's just Dodge and Stellantis as a whole. I think they're gonna have. They cannot be like catching up in 2024 to what people are doing now,
right?
Because they're gonna fail badly. So they're gonna have to be looking ahead here, and even though they're gonna be late in 2024, they're gonna have to compete with cars that are coming out in 2024. That's the tough thing to do here. It's not easy. So it's why Stellantis is not in my portfolio, to say the least. I'm not a guy that short stocks, but it would probably be at the top of my list if I was.
Yeah.
All right, should we jump into the comments?
Yeah, let's pop in there. There's still some time, and we should acknowledge that there was some internet glitches.
Yes.
This time. So Ian Michael Smith kind of went off the board and said, I just found out that my main battery is, I think, broken. I just completely failed, out of warranty, 167,000 miles, 20,000 for a new pack. There's got to be a better way or some sort of refurbish. I'm so crestfallen. Any advice? And he also says 2013 Model S60.
I didn't know what car he was talking about.
Yeah. So that's a 8-year-old Tesla Model S60. I also had a Model S60 for a bit of time. 167,000 miles.
It's not bad.
That's a lot of battery. Although, you hope to see it go a lot further. I mean, I don't know. Can you get a refurbished battery pack?
I would contact where did he say where he's located?
I don't think so.
Because there are a few companies like you could get like an aftermarket stuff with a refurbished pack from a salvage car or something.
Yeah, but I wonder if you get the we still able to do supercharging and stuff with one of those. I know like Rich Rebuilds doesn't have, or Jason Hughes doesn't have the ability to supercharge when he does the refurbished.
Yeah, that has been a problem, but. Yeah, I don't know, but 2013, you have for the 60. Did you still have the 8-year unlimited warranty on the battery pack?
Yeah, I mean 8 years would have just came up right now.
Yeah, it just ended right now. It looks like you're really just not lucky at all. I mean, my 2012 Model S, the battery pack failed like weeks before the end of the warranty. I was just so lucky. But yeah, there's not many recourse, I think, at this point.
All right. Shane O'Sullivan, Model Y not showing up for pre-order on the Irish Tesla website, but how cool is it that in 2021, there's a huge choice for great EVs with the Ioniq 5 and the EV6, etc. It's a good point. A lot of
for the Model Y, Irish market is right-hand drive, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I think England also doesn't have it and everything. So it's not too surprised on that front.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Hong Kong is a right-hand drive market, and they are getting the Model Y.
That's true.
And it's coming from Shanghai. Yeah, I don't know.
What about Japan?
Oh, I didn't check Japan. Joseph Lutztig just took advantage of the Model X pricing.
Yeah, I wonder if he's just sold one, Fred, with the little trick there.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I think Tesla screwed up. I think they are supposed to increase the price, and they just didn't think of it.
Although that is a long way out.
Yeah, I mean, you're betting on Tesla respecting the price, which they should. Recently, they have been doing it. Like they did it with the Plaid for the Plaid Plus people that were ordering the car, and then they cancel a Plaid Plus, and then Tesla was charging them $10,000 more, and they're like, no, we're gonna charge you the price when you order the Plaid Plus. So they did that. So I assume they would do the same for the Model X, but yeah.
So we were talking about the four-wheel steering of the Cybertruck. Porsche has that steering option, and the Taycan, at least in the Cross Turismo. I can't remember if they have it in the regular Taycan. It's very mild, though. It's like very subtle. You barely even notice, but it does help with the turning. Peter says Tesla prices keep going up. Used Tesla Model Y is up $10,000.
I mean, all
cars,
used vehicle prices are up right now. It's not just Tesla.
Yeah, and it might be inflation a little bit as well. Is there a real concern with LG? Seems like a quality company. Quality companies can sell bad things.
Defective product, yeah.
Right. And yeah, maybe LG should be out in front of this, trying to convince GM to bring in their stuff. All right, Ben Pena says, what is your opinion of the BYD Blade batteries? They seem to have the best tech right now.
Didn't even heard of it. Blade batteries. Gonna have to look that up.
I have heard that BYD's Blade batteries are good, but I don't know.
Is that a branding Blade, or is it like related to the technology? What was that mean?
I think it's just the form factor. They're like
looks like a Blade.
I think so. Oh, I mean, we can Google it.
I'm gonna have to Google it because.
Keep it going. Awesome and independent reports. I think he's referring to our work on the Bolt battery fires. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Ben Pena, when are you guys getting the Roadster? Oh, I forgot about that. Will Tesla honor the past referral programs?
They better do.
Yeah, I don't know.
Apparently they will. I mean,
the company's not broke.
And it's not broke, and we performed a service for those cars. So like are they going to return the cells of the vehicles that we referred, the hundreds and hundreds of vehicles that we refer? So yeah, technically they should honor it. It's more like I want to see the updated version of it. I want to see that insane SpaceX package and all that stuff. Like they've been talking about it for so long. Like we need to see what it looks like.
Yeah, I got half my town not half my town, but a bunch of people in my town driving Teslas. So I feel like I should get something for it. A Roadster's a lot, but we'll take it. All right. Will we be reviewing the Lucid motors if they ever get production out? Yes. As soon, if you know somebody at Lucid, we'll drive in a Lucid all day.
Yeah, I mean, we know, like I interviewed Peter Rawlinson last year. I like him a lot. I like the team at Lucid, and Lucid Air as a place in the market, especially since Tesla canceled the Plaid Plus. They're gonna have the longest range EV out there, so good for them.
Yeah, I wonder if they plan on marketing that. All right, so we're having some conversation in the comments about the $1 billion fine against VW and BMW. Daimler snitched out VW and BMW. Haha.
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah, we're getting some speculation there. All right, Andrew Richardson says latest plug-in market share in Europe is booming and continues to grow fast, even in Germany. Yeah, it kind of feels like Europe's about a year or so ahead of the U.S. and Norway's obviously in front of that. So it's good to see what's happening there. EVgo, how do you guys see the potential opportunities for partnership?
Are we talking with Electrify America here and the Volkswagen selling a stake? Because I'd be surprised. I mean, I see them more as competitor than partners.
Maybe they're saying, well, if Electrify America is going to partner up, maybe EVgo should. I think EVgo is trying to do a SPAC right now, though, aren't they? I mean, everybody's trying to do a SPAC right now.
I already did a SPAC, I think, or they're finalizing it. I think it's a CLLI. Right. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
All right. Could you do a review of the Comma AI driving system? Maybe George GeoHot, can give you one to try out.
I love George. George is he's
a great guy.
He's a treasure. I mean, incredible personality. Yeah, I mean, I did try the Como AI in the Tesla Model S years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I was impressed for like what they capable of doing for like low price hardware and all. I love his crowdsourcing of the data. It's extremely smart. Yeah, I mean, I've heard that they're launching a new product this week. I'd love to try it out. I don't know on which car I would try it out. Like all my cars already have like autopilot stuff. I don't know if I want to mess with that. I mean, I don't think Teslas are even on their eligible list of vehicle, but
yeah, it seems like he works with like Hondas and Toyotas and stuff.
Yeah, so especially Japanese cars. Yeah.
All right, Shane O'Sullivan. Interesting that F1 engine rule changes for 2025 are now shifting from hydrogen back to 100% biofuels, which sounds like gasoline. VW Audi are involved in the talks, bizarrely. Seems Ferrari is reluctant to electrify. Maybe we should get Jamie on that.
Yeah, we're not big on motorsport. We have Jamie that covers Formula E for us. I feel like if the F1 just doesn't like catch up on that stuff, the Formula E is just going to take over.
Right.
But at the same time, they have the same governing body, right? They're both
right.
They're both by the FAA. So
yep.
I feel like they're probably going to like make sure they don't cannibalize themselves too much. Yeah.
Speaking of that, I'm going to be at the FIA in Brooklyn. Sorry, the Formula E in Brooklyn tomorrow. So if you're in Brooklyn, hit me on Twitter or whatever, buy me a beer or whatever.
Is it going to be a hot day out?
It usually is, but I think it's going to rain tomorrow. So
maybe you get to see a crash.
Yeah, I'll probably be hanging out at the Nissan thing. They say they have some stuff they want to show us, so it's cool. Blade is LFP, great batteries.
Yeah, I was looking at them. It's I mean, LFP would be the chemistry, but I was looking at the form factor, and it's I don't see really blade like. It's like a long pouch cell. I feel like.
Well, that's all the
okay, we're done. We're done with the comments. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening and watching. We appreciate your time as usual. We hope you like the stories this week. You can give us a thumbs up. That always help with the algorithm more than you might think, and it's free too. You can give us a subscribe too. We did have a podcast earlier today. If you missed it, it was a quick podcast with the head of Polestar North America, where we discussed their current development in North American market for the Polestar 2 and the new 2022 version, and the Polestar 3 that's going to be built in South Carolina.
Yep.
Yeah, you have to be careful with those, like North and South. You confuse them. So when you subscribe, you get a notification when we go live, so you don't miss those. But you can go back on the channel and check it out. It's also on our Facebook and our LinkedIn too. Now we are gonna be live starting now on LinkedIn for the show too. And on your podcast app, you can always give us a 5-star rating. That's always extremely helpful for the show too. We'll always appreciate that. And we're going to see you same time next